See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? Isaiah 43:19. What if the new thing God is doing doesn't start with comfort, but with a command to leave everything familiar? Before Abraham ever saw a promise fulfilled, he heard a voice interrupt his routine and call him into uncertainty. God didn't hand him a map. He gave him a word. And that word demanded movement before clarity, obedience before evidence, and faith before results. The real question isn't whether God is doing something new. It's whether you're willing to move when he speaks, even when you don't even know where you're going. You see, Abraham, whose original name was Abram, lived in the city of Ur. He had family, land, and a stable, familiar life. Then God spoke to him, telling him to leave his country, his relatives, and his father's household. God didn't give him a detailed map or a final destination, just a promise to show him where to go. God promised Abraham three main things: that he would make him into a great nation, that he would bless him and make his name great, and that through him all the families of the earth would be blessed. At this time, Abraham had no children, which made the promise of becoming a great nation seem unlikely. And still, God asked Abraham to trust him and move forward without seeing the outcome. Abraham obeyed. He gathered his wife, Sarah, his nephew, Lot, his possessions, and his servants, and he left Ur. He began a long journey toward a land God promised to give him, later known as Canaan. Along the way, Abraham lived as a traveler, setting up tents and moving from place to place, trusting God step by step rather than settling permanently. The key fact of Abraham's story is that he left what was familiar for something promised but unseen. He did not know how everything would work out, but he chose to trust God's word over his comfort and security. This act of obedience is why Abraham is remembered as a central figure of faith in the Bible, someone who believed God and acted on that belief, even when the future was unclear. Leaving the familiar world of a steady paycheck, predictable routines, and known outcomes can feel unsettling when you step into trading. But just like Abraham leaving Ur, you're asked to move away from what feels secure into something that doesn't come with guarantees. You may still have responsibilities, family, and expectations, yet something inside you keeps pulling you toward a different path, one that requires faith and a process you can't fully see. At first, trading feels like standing in between two worlds. Part of you wants the comfort of certainty, while another part knows that growth rarely happens there. You watch charts instead of clocks, probabilities instead of promises, and you realize there is no manager to approve your decisions. Every entry and exit reminds you that accountability now sits squarely with you. Like Abraham, you're given direction without a full map. You hear about strategies, levels, systems, but you don't know exactly how long the journey will take or when consistency will arrive. That uncertainty can make you hesitate, causing you to second-guess trades or cling to old habits that no longer fit where you're trying to go. There are moments when you wonder if you left too early or if you waited too long. Losses can feel personal, and wins can feel fragile. Just as Abraham lived in tents rather than permanent homes, you may feel like you're always adjusting, refining, and recalibrating, learning to stay flexible instead of settled. And trust becomes your greatest challenge. You must trust your preparation, your rules, and your ability to learn from experience. Trading demands belief in something you can't control, only manage. Like Abraham, believing in a promise before seeing the land, you're learning to believe in consistency before it fully shows up. Community also shifts in this journey. Not everyone understands why you chose this path. Some question your decisions. Others doubt the legitimacy of what you're building. Abraham left familiar voices behind, and in trading, you may find yourself needing new conversations, ones rooted in discipline, patience, and shared understanding. In the end, trading isn't just about financial outcomes. It's about transformation. Leaving the known for the unknown reshapes how you think, decide, and respond to uncertainty. Like Abraham, you're not just moving toward a destination, you're becoming someone capable of handling what the promise requires. You may wonder how I understand the uncertainty that comes with stepping into the unknown. Well, like you, I once stood at a crossroads where my future felt fragile and unclear. If you're new here, let me introduce myself. I'm Dr. Connie Omari, but you can still call me Dr. O. I'm a trained psychotherapist with over 15 years of experience as a licensed clinician. Yet long before trading, I faced a season where everything I had built felt like it would unravel. I was running a federally funded program meant to serve women and children, and after exhausting my resources to get it off the ground, inconsistencies in the paperwork were discovered. After I'd already enrolled 18 women and their children who were depending on me for food, shelter, stability, and mental health services. In that moment, I faced the kind of uncertainty that tests your character and your faith. I believed God had called me to serve these women, but I didn't have a roadmap for what to do if the funding fell through. Fear told me no one would understand, so I made a life-altering choice. I falsified forms so the women could continue receiving the services I had promised. That decision marked the beginning of God taking me on an unknown journey. Much like Abraham, leaving the familiar for the promised. God had called me to serve, but he hadn't given me the full plan, only the next steps. And just as with Abraham, that step into uncertainty became the starting point of deep transformation, refinement, and a faith that had to grow without a map. What came next shocked most people, even me. The government launched a full-blown prosecution against me for lying on the documents. The prosecution lasted 7 years, and while that number sounds abstract, living excited was anything but. I was facing up to 10 years in prison, and every day carried the weight of not knowing if my children would grow up with their mother present. Fear wasn't occasional, it was constant. It lived in my body, my thoughts, my sleep. Betrayal cut deep too, as people I trusted disappeared. Stories were distorted and my name became something others felt entitled to judge without knowing the truth. I was fighting for my freedom while trying to hold my life together with trembling hands. You see, 7 years means watching time move forward while your life feels frozen. It meant making decisions under pressure no parent should ever have to make. When my 4-year-old daughter struggled with recurring sore throats, I became consumed with the thought that I might not be there if she needed surgery later. You see, my doctor had advised me that the normal protocol meant that tonsils should be removed if she had 7 recurring sore throats in a year, 5 recurring sore throats in 2 years, and 3 recurring sore throats in 3 years. But all I could think about was not being free long enough to wait to see how many sore throats she would have. So, after her 6th sore throat for the year, out of fear, not wisdom, I pushed for her tonsils to be removed, which was again earlier than medically recommended. 7 years of prosecution means noticing the signs that my son was presenting with delayed communication and needed support, yet being so consumed with legal battles that I delayed fully addressing what was right in front of me. Years later, he was diagnosed with autism, and I've had to carry the weight of wondering how much my distraction cost him. It also meant grieving without permission to fully grieve. My father died during this time, and the pain of losing him was overwhelming, but I felt I couldn't fall apart. I was terrified that if I stopped fighting, my own children might have to grieve the loss of me next. I watched my mother, the strongest woman I know, suffer heart issues under the stress of possibly losing her daughter to the criminal justice system. She later had a heart attack and bypass surgery, and I watched helplessly as I felt responsible for her health's decline. And in my marriage, there were long stretches of silence, distance, and fear as we both wondered whether love could survive something this heavy. Although I faced 10 years, I was ultimately sentenced to 4 months in federal prison. Walking into prison was not easy, but the fear that consumed me most wasn't just about going in. It was about who I would be after I returned and whether life could be rebuilt. The media didn't help, crafting versions of the story that weren't true. I felt weaponized by the media's interest in exploiting my narrative as though my life had been reduced to a tool for someone else's agenda rather than a testimony of faith and complexity. There was a deep sense of violation in realizing that my pain, my mistakes, and even my silence were being reshaped to feed an appetite for fear-based gossip. Headlines crafted not to inform, but to provoke, distort, and dehumanize. It left me feeling exposed yet unheard, visible yet unseen, as if my humanity had been stripped away and replaced with a caricature designed to keep others anxious, entertained, or distracted. Beneath the surface was a mix of anger, grief, and profound disappointment. Anger at being misrepresented, grief over the loss of agency in my own story, and the disappointment in how quickly fear can be sold when compassion would require more courage. The weight of other people's judgment was at times suffocating, pressing in on me until it felt almost impossible to breathe. And there were countless moments when I wrestled with God, wondering why was this the road he had chosen for me? I remembered how he had called me forward once before without explanations, without a map. And now, here I was again being asked to place my trust in him while walking a path I never would have selected for myself. A path marked by uncertainty and pain, yet destined to redefine my faith, my purpose, and the very shape of my life. I discovered trading out of necessity. I needed a new source of income. While incarcerated for financial crime, I began studying the stock market and learning from people who were already wealthy, many of whom I met inside prison. That environment gave me exposure, but it didn't fully prepare me for what trading would feel like in the real world. Once I was released, I realized that studying charts in theory and living with live market emotions were two very different experiences. Still, I believed I had an edge. Years entangled in the government system had forced me to understand how it operates from the inside, and my background in psychology gave me insight into human behavior. That confidence was reinforced when I made $800 on my first trade, and I assumed trading would be a relatively smooth transition. Instead, the next 2.5 years humbled me deeply. I lost over $15,000. That loss taught me what no one had fully explained. Trading isn't about intelligence or luck, but discipline, patience, and emotional mastery. Through that process, I realized that my journey wasn't just about creating income for myself. It was about helping my Black community recognize that their own lived experiences, their resilience, their pressure, their adaptability have already prepared them for the stock market, and that trading can be a powerful vehicle for abundance, both financially and relationally. I want to invite you on an unknown journey with me. I won't pretend this path is fully mapped out, because it isn't. This is new territory for both you and I. But I believe with everything in me that we didn't meet here by accident. Something larger than algorithms, charts, or coincidence brought us together. I believe God is calling us into alignment, not just to learn trading, but to change a narrative that says we must live in lack, struggle, and financial fear. Scripture reminds us, "See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it?" For far too long, scarcity has been normalized. Hustle without rest. Survival without strategy. Faith without tools. But that's not the life God intends. Abundance isn't just about money. It's about peace, clarity, confidence, and the ability to choose instead of constantly reacting. I believe God is inviting us to see provision differently and to steward opportunity wisely. This journey isn't about gambling or chasing riches. It's about learning discipline, patience, and mindset so wealth no longer feels foreign or forbidden. It's about realizing that your life experiences have already trained you for this moment. You're not behind, you're prepared. And together, we're rewriting what's possible, not just for ourselves, but for the people watching us walk this out in real time. So if you're ready to step into this with me, I've placed everything you need in the description when you join the community. A stock market lingo dictionary so the language stops feeling intimidating. The ebook for how to make $100,000 in the stock market to give you vision and structure. The $100 a day to 6K challenge to help you build consistency, not hype. Get my daily SPY Fibonacci levels so you're trading with clarity, not confusion. We're not here to survive anymore. We're here to steward, build, and multiply. If God is doing a new thing, let's walk it together. You've got this. Peace and blessings, Dr. O.